Welcome everyone to the Clinton City Council meeting being held at 2267 North, 1500 West Clinton, Utah on August 5th, 2025. This is a special meeting. Normally on those, we don't have a prayer or a pledge of allegiance, but I figured why not? So I'll go ahead and lead the pledge and say the prayer, after which I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start in our business. So will everyone please rise and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, we're grateful that we have this opportunity to gather together as citizens of Clinton City. We're thankful for the freedom we have here in America. Please bless those that are defending it. Help us tonight to be guided and to work well with one another on how we can best move the city forward and how we can best plan for the future and for the unknown. We're thankful again for all of our staff and all of our residents that put so much time into making the city a better place. We thank all of those that serve our city, especially our own law enforcement and firefighters. Please bless them, keep them safe. And again, we're thankful and ask for thy guidance in the name of thy son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Our first item is a public hearing in regards to the truth in taxation, which is a proposed tax increase. We also are going to have a public hearing on executive salary increases, and then we'll have a public hearing certifying the tax rate and adoption of the final budget. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak to the council for anything? Sorry, yes, roll call. Spencer Harvey.
Marie Doherty.
Dean Sir. Brandon Stanger. Gary Tyler. And Austin Gray is joining us online. He's with family, but he is here with us online. So
Austin Gray.
Is there anybody tonight that would like to address the council outside of taxes or budget issues? If so, please come forward. We'll give you guys time and have some public input period right now, again, for anything outside of taxes and budget. Okay, seeing none, then we're going to move forward. I'd like to go ahead and on the agenda change, instead of going straight to the percentage, one of the parts of the budget is the salaries. And so we do want to have the public hearing for that. And I'd like to, let's have us do that first. And then that way, once that's figured out, then that'll help us to then make the decision on the treatment taxation for the 7.06. So we'll move to agenda item B first. And I'll turn the time to our city manager, the petitioner here, for a quick summary on the executive salary increase.
Sure. So the executive salary increases. This is a new requirement that was passed last year in the legislative session, requiring all executive employees' salary increases to be noticed separately, and have a public hearing separate from the truth in taxation prior to the adoption of a budget. Sorry, I just ran to the printer. Okay, and so here we have the posted projected increases. This follows our the standard wage structure increases that we have the all of the staff at 2.5% COLA and a 2% merit or a 3% merit, depending on whether you're public safety or traditional employee. And you can see those designated there. The exceptions are in the mayor and city council member category with projected increase of 2.5%. That's the COLA. As we were looking at a question that was posed by one of the council members tonight, in the actual budget, it has a 3.5% total there. What that was is we discovered a clerical error tonight from last year when our payroll tech entered all of the merit and salary increases They have inadvertently submitted a 2% merit increase for the mayor and the council last year. And so the budgeted number, however, was the COLA number, and so that's why there appears to be a 3.5% increase. I sent a message to the council, but so tonight you can choose. We're disclosing that 2.5% based on the actual budget. We see that there, and the council can choose how they want to handle that clerical discrepancy, whether you want to reduce the COLA that you receive or move forward with the COLA stated based off the budget. So, but this is just a hearing. You're not approving anything with this hearing item. It's just with the total budget that we just have to show and have a hearing separate from hearing items.
And just for those that maybe have not seen this chart before, there's 3% for our police and fire. And you're probably wondering, well, why do they get more than the rest of the people that are at 2%? The biggest reason is in the past, our wages have been adjusted over about a 20-year period. That was how it was set up originally with our prior city manager. However, changes in the police and fire, just because retention is so hard and it's difficult to get those positions filled, the industry's pretty much changed to what they call a 12-step program. And so by using 3% instead of 2%, it helps those police and firefighters reach that maximum, if you would, before it just goes on to the cost of living. So that's, again, one of the biggest reasons why you'll see a difference there. And as you see under the mayor and council, whether we do a good or bad job, we don't get any type of a merit. In the past, the city's merit was very much, if you fogged the mirror, you got the merit. However, in our budget discussions this year, we really wanted to try to focus in that this really needs to be a merit. If someone's not towing the line, they shouldn't be getting that extra bonus. And so that is one change this year where before it was a step, now it's truly moving to this merit. So with that, we'll go ahead and open. Yep.
Can I just clarify, this is does require an ordinance?
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll open that public hearing right now. And if anybody would like to address just this part of the budget, as far as the new requirement to disclose those wage increases, please come forward to speak to this item. We'll ask those comments be kept to 3 minutes each. If we have people online joining us, they're also welcome to participate in the public hearing. So anybody for just this item, please come forward. State your name for the record. And welcome all of our city council candidates. It's a whole room full tonight of so thank you guys for being here and participating.
Hi, good evening, council, department heads, and city manager. Before I ask this question, I want to get clarification on the. Sorry, my name is Cameron Frick, by the way.
Cameron, sorry to interrupt. I'll give you your time back here in just a second. So just so everyone knows, public input. You're welcome to post questions. However, those questions will not necessarily be addressed individually, especially while you're at the mic. We will jot those down. We will cover those questions. So again, just so you know, it's not a question answer back and forth. It's a time to state whatever questions you have along with whatever opinions you have on those. So let me reset this. And then we'll start over.
All right, well, good evening, council, city manager, department heads. My name is Cameron Frick. The one question I did have, are these wage increases strictly for the position? If that can be answered yes or no, I'd appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, it seems that this was talked as a way to make them competitive with our sister cities and districts that are close by. Given that there is already a block for which they can be paid at, I do not believe merit raises should ever go to a leader. I propose eliminating merit raises for executive leadership and redirecting those funds to raise wages for our Clinton City employees, our public safety officers and city staff who keep Clinton running. Leadership is about sacrifice, not personal gain. Awarding executives bonuses for simply doing their job is wrong when our city employees who protect our streets and serve our community face rising costs. Those dollars belong in the pockets of the workers who are at the heart of Clinton. Imagine a Clinton where we uplift those who serve, where we protect families from the unfair tax hikes, and where leadership leads by example. So my recommendations to the council tonight: please do not give any merit raises to a leader, as that is their job, is to lead. There is no reason that they deserve a 2% merit increase or a 3% merit increase, when more than likely they're already making over 6 figures. They're making $100,000 a year, but it's $2,000. That's a little bit under $1 base that somebody else could get within the department. So please ask that we strike that from the roles or from the projections, and then we place that budget elsewhere to give to the actual employees, not just the department heads for doing their job. Thank you.
Sorry. I've got to interject. So I'm not sure if you saw in there, there is no merit whatsoever for a mayor or a city council member. We've removed that because we don't get any bonuses. Like I mentioned, whether we do a good job or a bad job, there's no merit whatsoever. The only thing that the mayor and the city council gets is the standard cost of living increase. I wish I made $100,000. If you guys don't know, the mayor makes a little over $1,000 a month, and the city council makes a little over $500 a month. So for our time we invest, for the dollar rate we get in return, none of us are doing this to get wealthy. It's a love, and we do love Clinton, and I'd be better off at McDonald's or any of our other restaurants if I was looking for an hourly rate. So just want to make sure we're clear on the mayor and the council section of that. So thank you, Mr. Moffett.
Yes, my name is Jim Moffett. Thank you, all of you, for serving. Thank you for the sacrifice as demonstrated on the board where you don't get that raise. We appreciate you doing this for why you are doing it. However, this is a complete rebuttal. The leaders of the individual agencies and departments set the culture and provide the leadership in those organizations. They don't care if you mark that down to 0, they'll just find the next job that didn't. And they will move on and take that culture and that leadership with them. If we feel, as I do, that the people that work under them deserve a merit, perhaps more than what they are getting, then put it in the budget and raise whatever we need to treat our employees the way we want to keep them where they're at, doing what we want them to do. We cannot be cutting every penny and nickel because it shows out on the street when those people aren't being rewarded, their leaders are leaving, and they don't have the tools and assets they need to work with. I strongly request that you do provide this merit increase to those employees, including the leaders that deserve it. And if there are people that are suffering because of this, let's fix that in the budget instead. Thank you.
Everybody will have multiple times, and I think we've got 3 public hearings, so this again is just.
Well, I don't have any major concerns. I reached out personally. The only thing just something to think about, just not telling you not to do any raises.
Mary, just state your name.
Mary Frederickson, but no, I just want people to understand what some of us are going through this year that are personal business owners. And so it kind of struck me a little bit funny when I saw the cost of living raise, because I've had to work a lot harder this last year. So instead of doing a $45 haircut, I'm doing a $30 haircut. We're giving discounts left and right, working extra hours. So it kind of hurt me a little bit when I saw them get the cost of living raise. But I mean, I know you guys are so far into this, but that's just, and I don't think, I think there's a lot of people struggling. So that's. that kind of hurt. Anyway, I love you guys, you guys are great. Thank you.
Shelby, if you need to move because of that light in your eye, you're welcome to take any other seat.
Just take a few minutes.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll go ahead then and we'll close this portion of the public hearing for this item and then turn it to council for discussion.
Mayor, perhaps we can address the issue that Trevor brought up first, just so we know how to deal with our city council salary line. That might be a good starting point. What do you think, Trevor, would make the most sense to fix that clerical error?
I think if we want a straight kind of, we're moving on to the next year, trying to rectify that, then it would just be taking what last year's COLA was 3.1%, and then finding the difference between adding the 2.5% on top of that and giving that little increase to get you up to where it would be at if we had done the 2 COLA increases year over year. Does that make sense? So right now, the amount is about, for the council, the gross amount is 704 a month. Then that number would change to 706.8 would be that difference, would be the $2.80 a month difference to get you to that. Where the COLA would have gotten you this year based off of last year. That would be the cleanest, if that's where you want it to go. To eliminate the merit.
Say whatever's easiest for you guys.
Yeah.
We're walking over 2 blocks. Really great.
Then will you change the line at all then, are you, so that, because right now it says 3.5%, so it might look confusing to people, what would you do with that?
So we could amend the budget tonight and just say that we want to amend it to reflect an accurate accounting of that, and I can find that number fairly quickly on what it would be. We just times the one by 2.5. The actual or the budgeted item for last year, we just passed that by the COLA increase to get what that budget number is.
Change it to say 2.5 instead of 3.5.
Yeah, so it would just change that line in the budget to be the 2.5% increase to get.
That
Yeah.
works.
So leave it the same as what was included in the staff report, which says that you guys get a 2.5 COLA.
Yeah, but he has to fix the actual numbers.
Yes, so so maybe perhaps when we do the motion for the executive salary increases, in that motion, you can just clarify that you're amending, you're wishing to change the percentage to reflect an actual 2.5 from what was budgeted in FY25. Does that make sense? So the FY25 budget is the COLA only. And then when I just pulled the salaries, I pulled it straight over and just put it in there. And that's what made it the 3.5 instead of the 2.5, because we did a 2.5% COLA on a merit increase from last year. If that makes sense. So we can do it either with the executive council, or we can do it just in the budget and change the budget. So whatever.
That's my way you should do, is just do it in the budget, because that's the line that's being changed, right?
Yeah, this approval for the council like the hearing is the ordinance basically saying we did it. Right, we're not actually approving the numbers, which is saying we approved that we did this, satisfy the law. The ordinance for the final budget, that's where we would adjust it, so I'll find that, we'll get that number within 2 minutes, and when we get to that point, we can say we're amending to this.
Yeah, so that's just what I want to clarify, that there's actually no change to this agenda item. It's being done as presented. So this isn't the actual thing that we're changing.
Any other comments?
No, no, the lights are on.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate the comments that Jim and Kevin and Mary made. As I look out, and see all our department heads, I think it's important for all of us to understand that I think every one of these individuals could probably go work at a different city and make a lot more money, or at least more money. They also might be in a situation where it's easier to do their jobs because we've, as the council, underfunded their departments for so long. Sometimes I wonder how in the world we keep these great people here. And I don't want to take any kind of a risk. I don't want to do anything that gives them even more incentive to think about going elsewhere. I think they deserve the COLA and the merit increase for doing an amazing job with what the position we continue to put them in.
Yeah, I agree. I understand the concept of wanting employees who are under the leaders to maybe receive a higher merit or something. I understand the comment by Mr. Frick about wanting, servant leadership or things like that. That makes sense, just theoretically. But when you put it into practice with our good people, we do want to keep them, and they do an incredible job. And we as a city council do want to have a way to show that we see the merit of what they do, right? Because that's our way of being able to say, we appreciate your work. We can see that you're working hard, that you're doing extra, that you're pulling extra hours, that you're going the extra mile to be loyal to the city, and we want to reward that too. And so I think they're very deserving, and I agree with Councilmember Searle that I think if they were super high paid, like if this were a normal executive, type private industry situation, maybe the argument would make more sense. But where it isn't, they're already kind of in a servant leadership style position throughout their entire career here at the city. It's worthy for us to reward their true merit, which they show all the time. So
yeah, just to echo that too, support what you guys are saying, that like what Mayor brought up, we've transitioned to a merit-based pay increase, right? So instead of just giving them it, they do still have to show that they earn it, which they're great and they do, and it's awesome. And so that leadership example carries down to their employees that are below them. To get that full merit, you need to really put yourself out there and to work for it. And so I too support giving you guys what you deserve, and especially when you show us what you deserve, which has been time and time again. So appreciate all you guys. John, your comments.
Thank you.
With all due respect, I don't think people understand what our staff, especially our department heads, deal with. You obviously have no idea. I just met with one for an hour before this meeting and had the discussion that standard employees work from 8 to 5 and go home. Our city staff, our city leaders are there literally 24/7. They're answering phone calls, they're thinking of ways to better serve us as a community. And so I will stand up and support each of our city leaders and be right behind them, thanking them for the thankless job that they all do to help this community and each of our citizens.
Thank you, council. Any further questions? If not, then now somebody about to make a motion.
Well, I do have one thought just for future reference, because I've been wanting to bring this up, and I just forgot in our last meeting. I'm fine with the 2.5% COLA for this year, but I wonder going forward if it'd be helpful for us to figure out what metrics we want to base our COLAs on. Like, because sometimes it's a Social Security inflation increase that we're using, and perhaps it might make sense to use the CPIW for the Mountain West states, things like that might create more accuracy that might help some of our residents feel like there's a metric involved and a method behind the reasoning. I don't know, that
That's a great point,
might
I
be
think.
smart going forward.
One of the main reasons we just stuck with the federal one is because we do have a lot of fixed income individuals, retirees in the city. Unfortunately, usually I believe the CPIW ends up being higher than the one through the federal government, but by all means, we can definitely have discussion in the future on which one to move forward with.
Yeah, just a thought to kind of create a scenario where people feel like they have some buy-in and metrics and standards or whatever that we're using. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? If not, start a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the executive salary increases for ordinance 25-08 for fiscal year 26.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, roll call, start with Councilmember Searle,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Councilmember Tyler,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Marty,
Yes.
and Councilmember Doherty.
Yes.
That motion is unanimous and that carries, so that ends agenda item B. Now we'll move to agenda item A, which I think will have a lot more public input. That one is going to be as far as the truth in taxation. That's required under Utah code to consider a proposed increase to the property tax budgeted revenue for the upcoming fiscal year. This proposal is 7.06 above the previous year's property tax revenue, excluding new growth. Just so everybody's kind of familiar, we've been dealing with this for a little while. There was a motion at one point to do 10%, 15. I don't know if that's actually a motion, but there was a proposal to do 10%. I think to help everybody in the spirit of working together and trying to be unanimous, there was a vote to do 7.5%. However, when the official numbers came from the county, then that's where that changed from a 7.5 to a 7.06. That's the number we've been operating on the last little while. And so we will go ahead now and have a public hearing in regards to this item. Please keep in mind, nobody likes a property tax. I don't want to have a property tax. No one else wants a property tax, but sometimes it is a necessary evil to keep the city going. The county does not automatically increase property taxes for inflation. The state does not automatically increase property taxes for inflation. The only way to keep up with inflation is to hold a truth in taxation meeting. So please, there's hundreds of pages of this budget. We anticipate that a lot of people are not going to want to have any type of an increase. So if you're one of those, please, whatever you can to say, I think it would make sense to cut here or cut here. That would be very helpful because that's really what it comes down to is any change in the truth in taxation makes it a change in the budget, which usually results in some type of a decrease in service or looking down the road to the future, less money putting aside for a lot of things we know that are coming down. So with that frame, same thing, we'll do 3 minutes per person. And we'd like to have everybody. Sure.
Would it be okay to maybe explain a little bit about what truth in taxation is and what that 7.06 represents to the standard normal homeowner, how much money that would be for a year? Would that be worth pointing out?
Trevor, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So the property tax, just like the mayor was explaining, each year we receive the information from the county on our valuations, and then adding the new growth figures in there will determine what that percentage or what that rate would be based off of that. So the cities will receive the same exact revenue plus new growth without doing any truth in taxation. If we were to want to receive more revenue from our residents and business owners, then we need to hold the truth in taxation. Up until June, everything is kind of a preliminary guess because the county doesn't release. And so that's why we were working out with that 10% number, because we were anticipating 10% more revenue than previous years. So that 10% is real, and the fact that it was 10% more budgeted than the previous number. However, when we get the actual numbers from the county, we see that we received about $110,000 additionally in revenue from new growth that happened in the city. That's most likely, as you look around there, that's most likely the commercial growth that has happened, along with some homes that come in there. But the commercial, we receive a larger portion of that. So, you know, we don't know exactly what items they are, but we had fat cats open, so we had improvements go there, so the valuations for that business had gone up, and so on and so forth. So those type of new growth figures will be factored in, and therefore brings the total tax liability down to make up that difference at the 7.06%. And that's an average increase, because they kind of lump things into pots, right? So here's the commercial pot and here's the residential pot. So that's an average number. The average household, which the county designated, was $481,000 or 480,000. I look at a million numbers a day. So around $480,000 that would put the total additional tax burden at $489,000. That'll put the additional tax burden at $38.46 on average per year. That's based on the valuation of your home and where that falls, and so that number could be lower or higher depending on the valuation of your and so that's a yearly, so you're looking at just over $3.40 a month on that. And so we only have a few levers as a city to get revenue, and only one main lever that we have to control a chunk of that revenue. The property tax is that lever. And as we're looking at our sales tax revenue, it's currently trending down. We're receiving less this year than we had anticipated, and so we reduced that budget. It's important to know that a budget is a really educated guess. We take a lot of time and we look at everything, but we're looking 12 or 16 months in the future, and we're hoping that we're close, right? And we feel really confident in the numbers that we've given in our budget, and we feel we've done all the due diligence there to make that happen. We know that it does pose an initial burden on the taxpayer, but our services, our operational expenditures are just going to continue to rise with the cost of operating a city. So I hope that answers any questions that we got there.
Thank you. So the time is now yours. Again, please come forward, state your name for the record. And also too, just because again, this is, there's going to probably be some things that have come up when we talk individually after and discuss some of maybe your questions that you've posed here at the podium. We've got a set of index cards and some pens we'd like to pass around. So even after the public input period, if there's another question that comes to mind, please, write it down, send it up here. We'll take some time to try to go through those also when it's the time for the council to discuss. So who's first?
Mayor, there have been a couple of comments come in online.
Okay, let's take those.
So this is from Chris. He said, there are so many unemployed people that want good government jobs. If an employee wants to leave, let them. Sorry, let me start over. I'll start over, sorry. This is from Chris. It says, there are so many unemployed people that want good government jobs. If an employee wants to leave, let them. There are tons of people that would love the benefits. People shouldn't just be entitled to, sorry, hold on.
more pay. They should work for that, and that's why they are merit increases. That is the appropriate place to pay employees more for doing more, not just giving it out because of inflation. Maybe we need to cut a little fat, a little bit. I'm sure Clinton city government has.
I think we need to stick to the comments that deal with this public hearing.
It is. It is.
It is?
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, Clinton city government wastes just like all other government agencies. And I have one other one that just came in with from Chris as well. With so many new businesses coming to Clinton, adding more sales tax, like Home Depot. Come on.
See that too.
And Tractor Supply, once more sales tax come in, will you lower our property city tax? Does the council have any data or analysis on the sales tax that will come in with these new businesses in the next year?
Right. Now we'll go ahead and turn the time over to those that are here in person.
I'm Lil Ackley, and I'm not going to show you how to do your jobs. I have some concerns. I did read that back hats is you didn't get the sales tax that you expected. Is that correct? Well, we're not answering questions. Okay, so this is what I did read, but any business that falls short of taxes, it falls back on us to make up for them. And so the businesses that you bring in, fast food businesses, I don't see where you're gonna get more sales tax from them. The sales tax is going to be transferred. If someone eats at Wendy's and they go over to Five Brothers, you're not getting more taxes, you're getting that tax transferred. It's going from, instead of coming from Wendy's, it's going to come from the other. And so the more businesses that we get in here that is like businesses that we already have, it's not really going to give us more taxes. Let's see. So the thing I feel we need to bring businesses in here that other people don't have that's really close to us. We need to stop getting the same ones. And if this is out of line, what I'm going to say next, you can tell me, but it is budget. As a crossing guard at 1800 North and 1500 West, we have a real problem. I have 3 for sure crossings that I have to get kids across safely. 4 at times if I can maneuver. 3 is hard enough. So I did ask for another crossing guard. I talked with the chief and he could support me, but I understand that it was turned down. And this is a critical crossing. We've got construction there. We've got several kids that cross, especially in the afternoons when I had the highest volume of traffic. And we do need another crossing guard. I want you to consider that. Really consider those kids' lives, because every one of them is important. And I'm failing because I can't get to all those crossings. And so that's something that I really want you to feel that you can maybe cut back a little bit to bring in another crossing guard at that intersection. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hi, Adam Larson, and I recall during the conversations about the budget before, on the tails of the large increase last year to now approve a 7% increase this year. During the discussion about the 10%, it was mentioned that the public would rather have more frequent single-digit tax increases than a double-digit tax increase. So my question is, does that mean we should plan on single-digit tax increases each year? Because if part of what we're raising taxes for is to put money aside for future things, there will always be future things to save for. So there will always be justification for putting more money aside. So at what point do we stop just appealing to the lesser of two evils, which is let's just do more single digits rather than approve a double digit? And when do we say, this, when are we gonna have a plan that says we're gonna plan for this far out and these are the taxes that, or these are the costs that we will plan to raise revenues for rather than, just out into the future indefinitely. Thanks.
Good evening, Cameron Frick again. Whereas my last comment was personal feelings, these comments are all based on facts. So forgive me, I have the speech I draw, it's gonna break a bunch of stuff apart, so I gotta run through it. So the leadership before us tonight suggest declining sales tax revenues justifies, so it's just majority reasoning for the raising of the property tax. Like, I understand there's other things. We just mentioned we have future infrastructure needs, we have the ladder truck, I've heard that more than happen, those things are sad, but from what we've all been told, the majority reason is the sales tax decline. And that's been budgeted for 5.2 billion this upcoming fiscal year. But the numbers tell a different story. Those numbers are straight from the Utah Tax Commission website. Sorry, I lost the slide. So I'm not sure how, how they pulled these numbers and decided, oh, this is what we're gonna go for an aggregate guess, this is what we're gonna have. But over the last 3 months before the budget proposal was voted on, so I guess that would have been May or June, sales tax averaged $442,230 and some change, or such a dollar amount per month, projecting to be $5.306 million, not 5.2. For the first 7 months of 2025, this is accounting for the July gravel pit tax that the state mandates and pay back every July to the counties where the gravel actually comes from. We averaged $441,523 monthly, projecting to a $5.298 million projection, so roughly $5.3 million, which those of us aren't great at math, that's bigger than $5.2 million. These figures are, and for fiscal year 24-25, we averaged $442,854 monthly for a total of $5.314 million. These figures are robust and consistent with the stable tax collections that we saw in fiscal year 22-23 and 23-24. Yet we're told that the fiscal year 2025-26 sales tax projection is only going to be 5.2 million, not accounting for all these other businesses that are coming in. Now, I heard someone talk about the Home Depot, like that's not going to be built this year, so we can't rely on those tax dollars coming in. The questionable projection appears to be designed to justify an unnecessary tax increase. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But raising property taxes on families already struggling is unjustified when our sales tax base remains steady. We need transparency and smarter budgeting, not heavier burdens on our residents. Thank you.
Right, name's Chris Hansen. This way, I just want to bring to your attention as I went through the budget and especially this proposal, is that, as you mentioned, there's only a few levers that the city can use to bring in revenue. However, with this tax increase, that does make us one of the more expensive cities when it comes to property taxes based upon the percentage. So out of Clinton City's revenue, the property tax is going to be about 40% of the city's revenue. Compared to other cities, they're at like 25%. The only one that is up kind of high is Syracuse, and we're still above them. So I just want to bring this to your attention that as you're going through this tax talks and everything of what are we going to do for the future? What levers are we going to pull that we're not going to continue to increase property taxes to the point that we're 50% property taxes what the city's getting, 60% is what the city's getting from its citizens. So Just want to let you guys know. Thank you, Chris.
Fred Mitchell, 1329 West, 1300 North, here in Clinton. Our family's been here since 1890. My grandkids are the sixth generation. This city was founded by people that could live within their means. And that isn't adding taxes, increases to cover things that we can get by without. We're spending money like there's no tomorrow. I'm on a fixed income. I ran a business for 30 years. And when times got tight, we tightened up to match it. I'm asking the council to tighten up and see what comes of it. If you keep adding taxes, people have less money to spend, which will alter everything else. And you'll be asking for more taxes another time. Live within your means. Thank you. You. My name is James Moffett, Fred's neighbor a few blocks away. But I have a totally different opinion on this. I'm in Clinton, I've been in Clinton for 24 years. And for most of those 24 years, we had a mayor and a city manager who lived exactly. This is what we got. Cut, down. We were out of it. And you folks have inherited that, and that's why we had the big tax increase last year. Now we expect fiscal responsibility, write a budget. Put in the budget for things like another crossing guard, so we don't get 7-year-olds run over on 1800. When we talked about selling the city park decades ago, we said, you want the city park to be on 2 state highways? With your 3-year-old wandering around there? No. But now we have schools all up and down there, so we need to take care of them, put in the budget. And then figure out what it's gonna take to meet that budget. And that is a shared responsibility between the businesses and the citizens of Clinton. Now, my taxes, you are saying, should go up by about $40 this month. Yeah, I can spare an energy drink a month to meet that. And so can all of my fellow citizens. Overall, the county budget, my taxes are dropping this year. And nobody wants to talk about that. Change the valuation, run all the proposed tax increases, including the school district. My taxes next year on a house that is within 10% of the average value will go up by $15 period for the year. That's all, that's paying you, that's paying the county, that's paying the mosquito abatement people. $15, that's all the entire county is asking more for me next year. I think I can find that, probably in the couch cushions. What I expect all of you to do is meet the needs of the city, be responsible. None of your driving BMW is paid for by the city, right, Mayor?
Even our city manager doesn't have a car.
Okay, so that fluff, that extra that we have to cut is not the budget, it's not there. Where's my new ladder truck for the chief of the fire department? You know, put that in the budget. Meet the needs of the city, don't cut services, especially essential services. And I think I can go with that in energy drink. Thank you, Mayor.
My name is Jennifer Christensen. I live at 1098 West 1300 North. And I appreciate what Mr. Moffett said, and also what Mr. Larson said when he was talking about the single digit increases versus double digit increases. I don't want our city council to play number games with us and try to help us swallow taxation pills more easily. What I really want to see is our city council spend money in a transparent and fiscally responsible way that addresses not only today's needs, but also anticipates what we need to look at in the future. We've heard that salaries here are not competitive. As I've reached out to department heads in our city, I have heard, as have you, that we have equipment needs, we have personnel needs, we have technology needs in our city, and we're not keeping up in terms of what our citizens are going to be demanding of Clinton City in the future. I know that nobody likes tax increases. I don't like tax increases, but I think it's important to look at what do we get out of that money. And we hear conversations about, okay, we have fat in our budget and we need to get rid of the waste. But I'd like to hear specific places where members of our community think there's waste. Certainly there are areas where we can say, yeah, we can nickel and dime something for a minute. But if we're going to have a long-term vision of what we want for Clinton City in the future, there are hard decisions that have to be made. And I think it's important to consider people who are on fixed incomes. And I think it's essential that we consider places where we're lacking crossing guards and ladder trucks and all of those needs that we have in our community. I also think we have to realize that when we want to live in a nice place, we have to pay for it. And when we are growing, it's hard to anticipate where we will find funding. And we can't predict where people will want to spend their money, but we do have a responsibility to attract businesses to Clinton that will have people spend their dollars here so that we can have increased sales tax revenue. So I just want to tell you that I appreciate the work that has gone into the budgeting and the careful consideration of what would be an ethical amount to raise taxes to cover our needs. And I don't think we need to sugarcoat it. We've got to pay for our city. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think there's a way, Derek, can they speak and we can just put it on the microphone for their 3 minutes?
Let me give her permission. Hold on. Let's see if we can. She's not unmuting, so I don't know. She's not unmuting, so do you want me to just read it?
Sure.
Okay. This is from Ashley Waters. She says, if the sales tax income projection was off, what has been done to analyze the projection and correct those numbers for future? Is the city estimating too high of revenue from sales tax for the current/future year?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kelly Mitchell.
Sorry. Technical difficulties.
I'll just go ahead and say who I am. I'm Kelly Mitchell. I live at 1489 West 1300 North. I understand that you can't completely respond during this, but my understanding is that you have about a $200,000 shortfall. Can you say if that's correct or not?
Go ahead.
Okay, assuming that. And that construction is affecting the sales tax or the amount of spending in the city, therefore affecting the amount that we receive from sales tax. I believe that tariffs and increased prices are also driving some of that reduced spending. Increases in property taxes are likely to affect that as well. We've got a lot of families in this city that are struggling to make ends meet. Although the amount proposed may not total a lot per household, it does affect people, especially those lower income and those on fixed incomes. When property taxes go up, they never come down. And the way that I was looking at it, if it's a $200,000 shortfall and the budget's approximately 16 million, you'd only have to come up with 1.5% reduction in your budget. So I'm asking the city council, please look at it closely and think about future years. because spending may not change in the near future. So we really need to look at living within our means. Thank you.
Guys, Hannah Levy here. First I do want to thank you guys. I know your job is not easy. Very thankless job and it's very selfless to serve. So I do appreciate that. One thing I want to address is this $38 number. I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous because we know that for the most part, that's gonna be passed off. You know, if you're a homeowner, you're gonna feel it in that sense. If you're commercial, you're gonna pass that on. And it's not just that $38, you know, it's last year, it's everything else that's gone. And when you look at it in its totality as a whole, I think that it is gonna put a burden on those on fixed incomes. You know, I deal a lot with the blessing box. I talk to a lot of people. It is nice that we do have some members of the community that can just sacrifice an energy drink a month. That's great for them. But there are people that are rationing medications. There are people that are choosing, should I pay this bill? How much of that bill should I pay? How much food should I buy? What brand should I buy? Should I go shop somewhere else? Can I get my produce in the reduced bin? I hear this all the time. While I understand that your job is hard, I would like us to look at the picture as a whole for the last 3 years, rather than just saying, well, guys, it's just this little $38 number, we're gonna pass that, and then things are gonna get better, because it's not the case for a lot of people, you know, and I understand. We had a previous mayor, a previous manager, who, to be nice, will just say that, yeah, they thought we could cut fat anywhere that we could, and now you guys have to kind of make up for that. I know we talk a lot about the next generation and helping them and came in with the housing. We are not focusing on our seniors, we are not focusing on people on a fixed income. They are suffering the most. And I just wanna make that, let's look at this as a whole. Thank you for bringing it, you know, down from 10 to 7, whatever the case might have been. But this $38 number, that's not it. It's much more to a lot more people. It's that homeowner whose hot water heater breaks, and because all these costs have gone up for the person that she uses, now that's gonna cost a little bit more too. It's a little bit here, it's a little bit there, right? Thanks.
Thank you.
Gary Greenline. I work in the public sector. So I understand the challenges. And I think that everyone in this room can agree that taxes are a necessary evil, and I totally get it. For the entity that I work for, I'm on the inside. And so I see stuff that a lot of the public doesn't see. And for the public entity that I work for, I see waste galore on a daily basis. It exists, it's there because I see it. I'm not on the inside here at Clinton City, but you are. A lot of comments today have either been pro taxes or pro cutting spending. Really, in reality, we probably have to do a bit of both. Maybe we can compromise and say, let's help where we can and lower the amount of tax type that we have to do. That's my best idea for some kind of a compromise, because I don't want to compare you to my employer. I might get fired if they see this. But we cannot ignore looking at waste, because again, I see it all the time. It's disgusting, it's repulsive. But I also know the need for increasing the revenue. Right now, driving through Clinton City is horrendous. We need those roads. We need the money to finish those roads. And so as you consider your decision, I would just ask that you actually look at not a one or the other idea, but a combination of both. Looking at what you can cut and go ahead and raise taxes when it's required. In my personal budget, I cannot go to my neighbor and say, hey, I need you to donate so I can take better care of my yard. I either have to cut in some areas of my personal budget and either make more money or hope that make my kids rent, maybe, I don't know. But I hope that you would take a balanced approach and actually look at both options and not just one or the other. Thank you.
I came to just sit and listen today, but I really didn't. I want you guys to know something.
Mary, just state your name.
Mary Frederickson. I've went to Connie twice in college, okay, just so you know. So sometimes I check out, I check in, I check out, and Brandon and I've gotten to know each other a little bit, so he knows when I check in and out as we had conversations. But anyway, with that said, really quick, I support you guys with going through this. You guys have worked super, super, super hard and super a lot of time. And again, my intellectual level and understanding of all this politics is very minimal. So I'm wondering if, when I started digging into this more, the $23 a year or whatever it is, that is probably nothing in compared to what's going on at a county and a state level. And I don't understand it all, but I'm thinking that the fingers maybe need to be more investigating at higher levels. That's all I want to say. And I could be totally ignorant and all ignoramus, whatever the word would be. But I appreciate all of you guys a lot. I really do. And I was sitting back there and telling Hannah, I said, I would hate to be a council member. So I appreciate all of you guys for what you do. I really, really do. Thank you very much.
Scott, you're deep in thought. You gonna speak tonight or not? No.
I
Anybody else? Age before beauty. We love our planning commissioners.
Dave Jones. Do you need the address?
No, that's true.
We've talked about budget, and that's what it took care of, and it's gonna have a result on property taxes, because you're gonna set a tax rate. Other tax revenue that the city gets is sales tax, that isn't based on your property tax. It's based on transactions. I've heard comments about, oh, we're gonna have Home Depot, that'll be a lot of money. We won't see a dime on a Home Depot for 2 years. Because it's gonna be built, other than a building permit. Because it's gonna be built, and some of the other things are that way, and roads are good. I've been in related to the property tax bill for over 50 years. So I know a little bit about it. And I know that when I moved from Draper had of the top 10 highest rates for property tax in the state of Utah, 5 of them were in Draper. And I moved up here, I was originally in Syracuse, about half. So we're not being extravagant here. And as far as how many generations with my great grandchildren, that's 8 generations. Okay. So I'm invested, but what I want to say is I've observed peripherally how they worked on the budget here, and I think the talk about being transparent, I think it was very transparent. If you were involved and took the time to see. It's not transparent if you're at home doing something else and then all of a sudden get the tax bill. Which brings me to my next point. 2 weeks ago, you all received a valuation notice. It's not a tax bill, it's a valuation notice from the county. And it talked about what your property has been appraised at for this tax year. Now, when we talk about commercial versus residential, on your house, you only pay it on 55% of its value. 45% is exempt. But with commercial properties, pay on 100% of their value. So they're helping carry the load. There's a lot of information on that page. If you take the time to look at it, you'll figure out what's going on. If any of you feel like you need some help understanding that, I'm offering my services. I'm retired, but I was with county assessor's office. So I can explain that to you as best I can. 10, 9, okay.
It's pretty loud, so.
Yeah. All right, I think that's enough. So if you want to grab me afterward, don't grab me. Ask me a question. I'll try and help you understand.
Daniel Martinez. I live at 1324 West, 2000 North, just right down the street. I'm also fortunate enough to pay a little bit more, so I can understand the the concern for those that are on fixed incomes. I like that the idea of transparency. He was saying it, if you don't get involved, then you don't understand, and you kind of get these notices, and they kind of hit you with a surprise. But I think that with the increase, like again, fortunate enough to pay, happy to do so. I would like to see maybe you talk about bringing in more like the Home Depots and some of these other businesses. My concern is, what about the infrastructure of the city? I mean, I know that there's a lot of the roads going on right now. I mean, I tried walking to Fat Cats the other day from my home, and just walking past 2000, walking across 2000 is crazy. Now it's crazy because of the construction right now, but that's a lot of road to be walking through just to get from my house to Fat Cats, to spend the money, because I'm trying to spend the money here in Clinton, but the roads get wider, and that tells me that we want people outside of Clinton, or we want people moving or driving and spending their dollars outside of Clinton. I'm more kind of like, why aren't we able to walk around the city and spend money here in the city? Go to the parks here in the city. I mean, a lot of that stuff is very walkable. I really enjoy that about where we live. But I'm a little concerned that the roads may be getting a little too wide. And maybe, if we do bring in this Home Depot, if we do bring in more businesses, what are we doing about the infrastructure and trying to keep people moving and keep people in, keep the money that we're spending here in Clinton City? 40 seconds, that is a lot. Looking at the clock is a lot. That was one other thing I was gonna say. Was happy to spend the money, was happy to do the property taxes, fortunate enough. Oh yeah, going about this with compassion, I think. And I don't know very many of you. I know this guy only because he did basketball for the youth a while ago, so I'm familiar with this guy, but I didn't realize that he was on the city council now. But going about this with compassion for those that are on fixed incomes, I'd like to echo that sentiment as well. Thank you.
Dan, thanks for coming. Did you get one in this turn or last turn?
I think there's no more time.
No. So. But Jen, if you want, we've got comment cards and we can put the question up.
Hi, everybody, Donna Gagos. I just wanted you guys to bear in mind that the Central Weaver Sewer Improvement District is also going up 7.75 this year. That's proposed, and they'll be having a public hearing on that as well, and the school district is going up 10.3%. So as you're going back and forth, please keep that in mind.
Thank you. Trevor, if you'll go ahead and sell cars and minutes, we'll do another call for anybody that'd like to speak during the public hearing. Once we close that, again, if there's stuff that comes up or you didn't think to say it earlier, please feel free to write as legibly as possible and pass those up so we can try to discuss things that may come up. If that's going on, anybody else that hasn't had a chance to speak? Okay. Seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing and we'll move to some discussion. There's a lot here to go through, so thank you everybody for taking your time and coming. I think we'll probably try to hit as many of these as we can with our own comments. We'll have some time for staff to comment on some of these also. I think the easiest one to take so far is in regards to like businesses. I think it's a great comment that, hey, if you have another sandwich shop or you have another car wash, you're just taking from Peter to pay Paul. Unfortunately, Clinton City does not own any land along that commercial corridor that we can develop ourselves and bring something in different. And so with private property rights, any business that wants to build on that commercial corridor because it's zoned for a business has that right. One of the pads that's going to be in front of Home Depot, supposedly somebody was looking at it as a car wash. And told one of the guys in Paul, please, whatever you can do, don't build another car wash. However, businesses have a right to come in and buy that land, to do what they want with it. And unfortunately, it would be nice to be able to say, sorry, you only have this one and you only have that one, but we live in a free country that people can do what they want when they buy that property. So thank you so much for bringing up the comment though about crossing guards. I think that would be one thing. We do have our police chief here. I think that's a great thing to look at. Sean, would you mind coming up, chief, and just maybe telling us, do we need more than one? And, you know, what that might look like if we were to divert some of the funds in this budget to help go towards more crossing guards. And just so you guys know, and I always forget, the school district does not reimburse us for our crossing guards.
No, the school district does not.
So thank you taxpayers for paying for our kids to be safe. That's unfortunately part of the almost 10% for the school district. That does not cover any crossing guards. We do that on our own for our kids' safety. So thank you, chief.
Yeah, Sean Stoker, chief of police. Regarding the crossing guard, this is something that we discuss consistently throughout. We've had a lot of changes here in the city with the streets, and there are certain parameters that fit with that the state has set and the school district has set with number of children that cross and where those qualifiers are for school zones and everything else. So just a little background on that. We've seen a lot of change at the intersections around 1800, especially over the years. And we've adapted to that. The additional crossing guard position was something that Trevor and I discussed a lot at the beginning of the budget process. And honestly, as we discussed continuing cuts as the budget went through, that was where it dropped off. And so this is something that we're facing today, right? Just like all of the people have gotten up to talk about. And I appreciate the involvement. This has been awesome. So, but that was the result of the crossing guard discussions. It would be about $6,000 to do crossing guard budget, which doesn't sound like a lot, but on a percentage basis, in comparison to what other budget cuts we're making, it's something. So,
and with the current situation with bigger roads and construction, is this something where ideally for you to feel comfortable, would you recommend more than one at this point in time?
We put a second crossing guard at the intersection of 2300 North and 2000 and saw that great impact of that.
So at this point, how many would you recommend that we would include in the budget if you had your
One.
extra? Okay. Perfect. Thank you for
Understanding, of course, that this is all a bigger part of the budget discussion, right?
absolutely.
So
It's a give and take. And so you did mention this came out or was taken out during a request for some cuts. Can you fill us in a little bit on your experience as being a department head and having cuts kind of come from city manager, finance director, back to your department from the initial budget you first wanted?
sure. So the budget process. We're good. We're good. He has to listen to me all the time, so he knows. The budget process is something that we take very seriously here. Like has been mentioned, not erroneously so, we run lean. We run incredibly lean, and we've done more with less throughout my entire career here. I've been a police officer now for 20 years, and 18 and a half of that I've been here in Clinton. I've been the chief now for over 4 years, and it's something that as a citizen here too, I take incredibly seriously. These topics that we're discussing, especially the use of public funds in providing these services, are something that we definitely care about and we think about and strategize about and plan for and do the best we can all the time. So we start discussing the budget generally right before the beginning of the calendar year, and then get into it with a lot more detail just after the first year. That's what happened this year as well. And we have a first draft budget that this isn't a wish list. We actually start from what we feel our needs are. And that's where we start from. And then we as a group and as a team continued to find places that we felt we could consolidate or cut. And that's the spot that we landed. One of the things that I don't expect everyone to know, but that is true, is we've actually cut a lot from this budget. The health insurance alone is over $400,000 of savings. And I think all told, we were close to $860,000 that we cut from the initial budget first draft that we made. So as we continue considering, and I don't know if I'm overstepping at all here, just cut the mic. Yes, I am. But that's why I keep looking over. You gotta wave big at me. So no, but as we've continued through this, I promise this is something that we take seriously. And you know, these aren't just catchphrases that we're throwing out. Our people are our strength here. We have incredible people. We focus on our culture. We focus on doing the right things for the right reasons all the time. And that is what we see almost all of the time from almost all of our people. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the culture that we've built in the police department and the city overall. And so I'm straying a bit from the question, but this process is something that we've worked on throughout the year. And we have made cuts throughout that process.
Yeah, I think just important to add and to echo what Sean was saying. My idea is when we create this budget as a department head group, city manager, we're doing it in concert with each other, right? We understand what each other's departments need, and then kind of the rationale behind that. Before we began that, I said, hey, look, we've got to look at reducing costs at the beginning. Because we need to make sure that we're not asking for more money than we need to. We need to get a true accounting of those needs, but also not sacrificing our normal service. And we consciously make those decisions together. The health insurance change to reduce those costs and still remain competitive for our employees was made in conjunction with each other so that we can have kind of that united front. So it's all of these little decisions. We go back and say, hey, let's rework this overtime budget and see where that's at. Or hey, Jason, I think your projections are a little off. Let's look at those. So it's a really collaborative process. And as a department head group, we try to involve each other so that we can support the needs of the other departments versus creating a need to feel like we have to fire and police need to argue for public safety money, but they can understand, yes, Jason needs a need this year, it feels a need with additional firefighters, and so Chief Stoker's not going to ask for additional police officers in conjunction with that or vice versa. Thank you.
Which is something, sorry, but to plug Trevor's leadership. Prior to his time as city manager, we very much functioned in silos in the city, especially within our departments. And these decisions that we've made are what we feel are in the best interest of the city. Specifically, the crossing guard, there's a lot of unknown with that intersection. And so it was always something that we had discussed to continue to evaluate throughout the year, especially after school started. But there's a chance that some of those crossings may be closed depending on what the road work is in the area. And so this wasn't just, we evaluated safety as we had these conversations, and my understanding was that we were going to continue to have these as school started to be able to determine which course was best to move forward with.
And before you sit down, I've got one more question. You've been around for a long time, you've been involved with this budget longer than probably every one of us sitting here. So transparency is a big thing, not only to us, but to residents. So tell us, in your opinion, how's the transparency now with the budget this last year or two versus what it was like prior to some of the changes in the city?
Not just for the public, for the department heads alone, our engagement with the process has been 100% different. And I'm appreciative of that as both an employee and as a citizen. And I trust that we're going to remain on the same course, especially with Trevor and the elected officials in place. So I appreciate, I feel we have more transparency with the process now than we ever have. And the more that we can do to increase transparency across the board, I'm all for it.
Appreciate your time. You have a question for him or?
Just comment related to him. Not a question, Sean, but I don't know if you're even here, but for everyone here, Sean's talking about the process of, going through the budget and the cuts. And I one of the shocking things to me was, we drew a line as a council on budget cuts when it came to the police department. We decided that we had to stop the cuts when we got to replacing tasers that didn't work, replacing ineffective police radios, and not replenishing your ammo. Like, that's how far down the list we're going when we're talking budget cuts.
Thank you again. So for those that don't know this gentleman with the bright shiny tie, he's our finance director. Aaron, how long have you been with us now?
10 months.
And trust me, we got a seal on him. He came from Salt Lake making more money, but we said, hey, why don't you come and make a huge impact on the city of Clinton? And I'm so happy that we were able to make that job offer work and that he's here. There's been a lot of questions on sales tax revenue, budget cuts. Can you just give us, and again, we don't want to go all day because I know this is what you like to talk about, but can we maybe put you on a timer for those two little items on why we're worried about sales tax revenue, but also to what kind of cuts and maybe some increases we've done to really help make this a holistic budget?
Yeah, so specifically on sales tax, what we're looking at, we did look at, hey, this is what's happening right now, specifically for the last 3 months, while they may go to a 5.3, they're actually lower than the same period for the previous year. And so we went back several years to try to look at the sales tax and just kind of see how is it trending. We had a couple of really bad months this year. especially relative to where they were the prior year. So that's what we're trying to track. We're trying to track year over year what it's doing and what we expect it might do, right? Very recently, the labor report came out very, very bad. and so those are some of the things that we're looking at. We're trying to say, okay, this is what's happened in the past. What do we think is going to happen in the future? And so we're trying to be conservative so that we don't get caught expecting more revenue than actually comes in. We'll be elated. I tell everyone I'm elated if I'm wrong. Like if we bring in more sales tax, I'm over the moon. But I also want to make sure that I'm being responsible with the way I project it. So as far as other budget cuts go, as Chief Stoker mentioned, we changed the health insurance, and that resulted in probably about a $400,000 cut. It started out when we first began conversation. It started out with we were expecting about a 7.5% increase in health insurance, and then by making the changes that we made, we actually got it to come in lower than it was the previous year.
You can clarify that, or that savings, we're not eliminating health insurance from our employees. We gave them another option.
Yeah.
That they decided to take, right?
Yeah, so
we are not cutting things from our employees.
Previously, we only had a traditional plan, and we implemented a traditional plan plus a health savings or high deductible plan with modifications to it. And then employees have the choice of either staying in the traditional plan and paying into it a little more, whereas it had been 100% funded previously.
Or to clarify, there is a change in the health insurance plan. Before, employees got 100% paid everything, no deductibles, nothing. Now it's a 90-10 split. So yes, there is a cut. There is a reduction in that service, if you think of it that way, to those employees. What's that?
Yes, the premiums. There's 100% premium coverage. Yeah.
Not
deductible. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, and then any other things that you brought in and thought, hey, we can make some adjustments? Because I want to make sure that people understand, like, they've cut and cut and cut.
Yeah, and some of it was, we went back and looked at the revenue numbers more closely to say, hey, is this an accurate, are we just doing what we did last year, or what's actually happening with our revenue so that, we can try to hone in on a better number there. So we did increase some of the revenue projections based on what's going on in the city. We obviously reduced some of them as well. But I think, what were some of the other cuts that we talked about? I mean, we had everyone go through and kind of sharpen a pencil. I know we've had public meetings here where we've talked about various cuts that we've made.
There's some capital projects that's reduced costs on or pushed off to future dates. With our personnel, we had some attrition this last year, which brought down some cost as well. Right, so we had individuals retire and we replaced them with newer employees, so that cost changes, and so we got some cost savings there. And so there are some, just as with every budget, there's going to be some give and take every year, and we do the best we can with the projections we have. And we're feeling pretty good with how we projected this last year. We're pretty right on track with where our spending was projected in our revenues, except for our revenues are tracking a little down in the sales tax area.
Thank you. And then we'll have one more question for you guys, and we'll kind of move to the council's comments. And we'll look at any other of these questions or comments that come through. As far as planning goes, it's important not just to plan for this year's budget, but to plan 3 years, 5 years down the road. It's very difficult because we don't know what the overall economy is going to do. We don't know what growth is going to be. In the past, growth was our saving bacon. If there was anything left over, which is what our finance manager hope happens, it just went into capital improvements. So we had some extra money to build the police and fire station expansion. A lot of it was just, if we're there, we'll have it extra, but there's been no extra put away for these last few years. And so in this budget, it's a very deliberate guys, we can't just bank on growth because it's not there anymore. There's signs that the economy can be changing. So what can we do to be as proactive as possible, but yet still protect the citizens and not go overboard? So with the capital improvements, well, that's something we've been working on a long time. You guys were able to put together some actual real life numbers on some things that need to be done. Trevor or Aaron, whoever, would you guys just maybe give us a quick overview on what that looks like and how much a $400,000 or $500 gets set aside covers what we think is coming down the road over the next 3 and 5 years?
Sure. Did you want to go ahead? Property.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so we've added, it is in the budget, we've added a 5-year, because as you know, we consolidated a bunch of the projects into Fund 38, which is our capital improvement fund, and then we've attached a 5-year capital budget to that. It's still a work in progress. We still want to get better. We always want to have better data and get more information to make the best projections that we can. And so a lot of this is honestly just in public works, just keeping our streets and water and storm drain, all those things going. But for the upcoming fiscal year, we have about $9 million worth of projects that we're hoping to get done. We anticipate, and I know Bryce and David can talk a lot more about this, but we have a lot of grants and stuff we're working on. We're constantly trying to find revenue from other sources that will allow us to do this without having to spend all of that out of our pocket and impact taxpayers. So a lot of that will hopefully be covered by grants, but it is still sizable. Subsequent years, we can just scroll through those. So we are trying to project out capital projects. We're trying to say, hey, when is our infrastructure going to fail? Where is it tracking, and what do we need to do to be ready for it so that we can replace it when
Yeah, these items are not comprehensive yet. That's our goal this year. As one of the things that as I came on, I recognized that we needed to make sure that our capital project lists were up to date. Public Works has done a really great job of maintaining the enterprise funds and the utilities like our streets. But our general fund and our parks capital improvement plan, they aren't as solidified and fleshed out. We've identified items that we see as a direct need, but there's a far more comprehensive set of information that we need to get on what our actual look at. And these are generalized things like HVAC system upgrades, IT infrastructure replacement within the civic center, security system upgrades. And those, we looked at costs for other cities and looked at the impact of those. And knowing that our carpet has been here for nearly 20 years and in a lot of places deteriorating and falling apart, and we'll need to keep that fresh and updated. And so we included those in this, so we had a good idea of what those plans will be. And as we solidify that over this next year, our goal is to make sure that we have an exact route on where these funds will go that we're going to set aside or begin paying for, because we are behind in technology. We do need upgrades to our security systems. We do need to look at roof repairs because they're starting to see some failures and some. We're hoping for not a catastrophic failure that will force our hand so that we can be able to plan for this and get this going in the future. So we included this information inside the budget to show where those projects are needed and when they're needed. But right now we have, after we do this transfer, we'll have $1.4 million in our general fund balance. That's for general fund projects. And then and we know that we'll need more over time. And so just as you set aside money for future roof replacements, for carpet upgrades, for whatever it might be for your own home, we need to begin doing that as our complex is aging. We're at that 20-year mark that just seems magically that everything starts failing, and we're starting to see those. And so the $500 or $500,000 that we're setting aside is coming with this budget is coming straight from the fund balance. With a little additionally coming from the property tax increase, but about 440,000 of that is coming from the fund balance projected on the budget, and that's money and that is going towards capital infrastructure. As you look at general accounting practices for governments and for anywhere, you want to make sure that you're not using your savings to maintain your operating funds. And that's what we've done here, is that we make sure that our operating revenues match our operating expenditures, and we're not utilizing our savings to pay for those operations that are ongoing year over year. And so that was very important to us as we did that. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, and then, yeah, I mean, we talk about, you know, running things like a business, and so something that's very important to us is the concept of burn rate, right? How much do we have in our savings account that will allow us to continue as a city? So we try to pay very close attention to that. I think it's what, 2 to 3 months right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just try to pay attention to that number and say, hey, we want enough so that if a crisis happens, we can keep providing services to people, but we don't want so much that it's just sitting there not doing what it's supposed to do. So we try to keep track of that number and make sure it stays at a good amount that allows us to function without being too big.
Right, 89 days is after the transfer to capital fund. Is about 89 days of operating expenditures in our fund balance to maintain us on.
Okay, thank you, staff. Go ahead and turn time over to the council now. Please, there's tons of cards. Feel free to continue to have some questions, some comments, write them down. Those pass to me as the council speaking, and then we'll try to continue to address things and hopefully clarify stuff along the way. So, council, time's yours.
Well, I'll go first, so you guys can kind of know my thoughts and we'll work from there. Appreciate all you guys being here, sharing your thoughts, the wide array of thoughts, and it's fun to see a lot of you come in here and see your faces. So just a quick background where I've been at. We started talking about it at the beginning of the year, and we knew we needed to increase fees, which a lot of you have seen. We had to increase our water fees and sewer and all that stuff, which equated to about $9 when all was said and done, $9-ish, just short of $10. My kind of feeling from the beginning, from those first budget discussions, was we raised so much last year that I wasn't comfortable raising this year, and so I was waiting for my mind to be changed. So I was comfortable doing the fees because we needed to do those accounts needed it, from what I felt. And then as budget talks kept talking and going and hearing, you know, a lot of valid concerns and ideas, I just, to be frank, haven't been convinced yet that we needed to do a tax raise this year. And I know there's 2 conversations of thought that have gotten brought up tonight, and will get brought up again, I'm sure, to do smaller frequent raises every year, and so you build up over time, or raise when you need them, and whatever that amount may be, but maybe, you know, skipping a year or 2 and then getting a raise, which might be higher because we skipped, but overall you might not be paying as much as a taxpayer because the money stays in your pocket for those, let's just say, a couple years, and then on year 3 you might have to pay, you know, if we do a 15% around the $100 or $90 or whatever the math is, right? So those 2 schools of thoughts, and that's kind of where I land, is only raising when I feel like there's a need. And I know we've talked about a few needs, like the crossing guard and things like that, which would be awesome. And so honestly, so the council knows, where kind of my biggest hangup is, and I've mentioned it before, is when we talk about fund balance, we pick the number of 25% or the 89 days or 90 days, whatever, was where we wanted to keep that fund balance. And so we didn't want to dip below that, and whatever was over that, we could move to capital projects, which I was mildly comfortable with in theory, but then we also seem to land on a hard like 500,000. Let's pull from that for this year to get us going to kick off some of these things. And so we can use the crossing guard as an example. With Chief mentioned it was maybe about 6,000, so just going off of that number for another crossing guard, we could take that out of for this year until we can look more at the budget. But we know right now there's an immediate need for a crossing guard. We could take some of that fund balance and do a crossing guard or whatever, however the math can work. But my point just being, I was comfortable with fee raises, but right now I'm not comfortable with our 25% for fund balance just being as our hard line, and then automatically putting 500 towards capital future things that might happen when we know right now there is an immediate need with consumer spending struggles and things like that. And more importantly to me, that we raised so much last year that I don't want to raise this year. So last meeting, we had to vote to come into a truth in taxation. And so like it was mentioned earlier, it was potentially going to be a 10%, and higher, but 10% was kind of the main one that was hovered around. And then it was brought up that if we all kind of got a consensus, then maybe we could lower it. And so I was willing to get on board with lowering it and voting for that, because to me it felt like a good thing to do, right? Like if, majority felt we needed to raise more, cool. I feel like we don't need to. And so let's compromise and work together and vote on it. And it wasn't a unanimous decision, but thankfully, I think it went down to this 7%, what ended up being the 7%. And, but today, I'm not comfortable going because I felt I tried to play ball last time and got burned. So I just feel that we should keep the money in the taxpayers' pockets and see what this budget allows us to do this year. And then for next year, we can reevaluate and see where we need, if there needed to be cuts, or if we were okay, or if we need to raise more.
So what's your proposal, Councilmember Irving?
That we don't raise our taxes.
Any suggestions on where to make some cuts?
Yeah, the 500 from fund balance, it's going right to capital projects. We could drop that even with the sales tax number, if it's being 200, right? And we dropped our proposal to 5% to cover that $200,000. We have this fund balance here. And I know it's not best practice to use ongoing expenses from fund balance. But to me, right now, with the need we have, that's a reason to use the fund balance.
So you'd like to take money out of savings and reduce our overall financial health?
No, I'd like to keep the 500,000 that we're taking out of our fund balance, putting it in the budget, and leaving it in the fund balance.
So that would increase it more than 25%. So then that would probably be a 35% if you left that 500,000 in there. Is that what you're saying? So raise the 25% and keep the money in the general fund?
No, don't keep it in the general fund. I'm saying instead of raising our property tax, we use the fund balance to pay the expenses that are making it so that we need to. Because right now, we're just taking that 500, if I understand if there's correct me, but we're just taking that 500,000 and putting it towards these capital projects that we want to do that are happening. I mean, let me look at the list. Let me show you or talk about. On the bottom.
while you're pulling it up. Don, you guys will pull it up too, I believe it was $9.4 million.
Yeah,
So, you know. There's a lot of needs and 400,000. Doesn't even make a dent hardly into that 9 million or the next year's 11 million or any of these other things. So again, you know, if there's specific cuts to the budget, let's go for them.
So, for example, this past couple of days, first time I saw the fiscal year 25-26 project list, but we've got like fuel station pumps and tanks at 150. Are they, do we just need to replace them because it's time? Are they a catastrophic failure? If those type of things, like going into the nitty gritty. Why don't you say yes, but you're also saying in 20 years, all the buildings, at the 20-year point, all the buildings fall apart.
and they currently are.
So
I know what you're saying. The 150,000 for fuel tanks will cover the new fuel tanks that are needed. Because the ones that we currently have are failing and they're out of compliance. There's some other issues that I don't want to share here that I had thought to share with you outside the meeting. As well, and that's security purposes that I want to share that outside the meeting, not in a public meeting. And so I'm not trying to keep things from the public, but as a record of security, we want to make sure that we remain secure. So that is a need that's been identified, as well as, you know, our HVAC systems are currently failing. We rip out both of our boilers in City Hall. The AC units in the fire station failed, and the rec building has not been touched yet. However, those are being maintained.
I guess my point is
keep going. I don't want to turn it in, but those are, because we don't need very real costs in those.
Keep going. All right, Gary, hold on. Yeah,
That's what got.
I guess my point is, you said 89 days of operations of fund balance, right? So what's the minimum you can go to by state law is like 15%, 5%, right? And we chose 25% as what we're not willing to go down. I guess all I'm saying is I'm willing to go down more to cover that, and things that you just mentioned could be considered to me one-time expenses that savings can be used to pay for these things so that the burden doesn't pass along to the taxpayers.
You're absolutely correct. These are one-time expenditures. That's the capital project list is a one-time expenditure list. And so any of those projects can be delayed. The risk of delaying capital projects is that we always pay tomorrow's dollars what we could have paid today's dollars for. So that's the only risk on delaying any capital projects. So and we saw that through the pandemic, right? Those costs skyrocketed. And so if we maybe were more proactive on our capital improvement plan earlier, we could have saved quite a bit more money than we are now for our roads or anything like that. So you're absolutely right. That is a lane of thought. We can definitely do that on how to do that. The risk is always going to be that we would be utilizing the fund balance to pay for operational expenditures, which do not go away. And so this year we would incur about close to $300,000 of operational expenditures through the general fund balance, which would then mean next year we would have that amount, give or take, based on operational changes, plus whatever new operational expenditures are. You know, if we only give a merit increase to our staff, that's $200,000 that we'd have to $250,000 there. So that's the risk but that is a line of thought that you could do.
But the 500,000 that we move to capital projects could go towards those things, whether best practice or not.
No, it absolutely could. And we've done it in the long past. Typically you do that in recessionary times where you know that you're not going to get additional revenue in. And so that's typically when you want to save that money to kind of future proof and recession proof your budgets.
So to clarify, then you'd like to reduce what we have in our savings by at least 5% and not put anything aside for any of the future items we know we need. Because we don't need them today, even though we might need them next year and the following year.
Yeah, because I guess in my mind, so my line of thinking would be, I think what's a good example? Say, I guess we'll pull from here. We scroll to next year's list, or I guess it's 2 years, right? So 26, 27. So we're looking at this, and well, it's hard with these water and storm ones. General fund. So interior paint, civic center complex, $100,000, and then the IT infrastructure replacement, which I think is mentioned twice. So I didn't know if that meant it's just on the list and it'll get crossed off if we do it, or if it's kind of like a 2-year plan, like you do half at 100,000 and then half the other one. So those right there, the interior paint, or those could arguably be pushed more, like pushed in a later year, except and I guess those aren't great examples. My point is that I think personally, I like when our increases are tied to specific things or like projects, right? So that's why I like the fee. And I say like, I don't enjoy that we're paying more for things, but I liked that for fees, they were tied. We knew the water's going up, and this is why. Boom, 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 boom. And these, to me, this 500, this planning, this, we haven't sat fully in a room and talked about what the top 10 list things are that need to be improved within the next year. So we're just seeing these lists of things that we could use, we do need, or are at critical failure, like you mentioned with the fuel pump. And so it'd just be nice to not burden citizens this year. Next year, we use some of our fund balance to balance the budget. That's a fun phrase to say here. But balance the budget so they're not burned this year. Then we look at it, we deep dive, we really come up with this plan. We're focused on it, and we list it and say like the top 10 list. Now when we turn around next year and we say this is our top 10 list, we don't have the money to fund XYZ. This is what it would look like in a tax increase. So now it could go, it's obviously instead of it being 7%, maybe it goes up to like a 14%, so it just doubles. But that way we at least know exactly what needs to happen. We know the dollar amounts, roughly, and the guess obviously it's budgeting and stuff. But I just want to take a year to take the budget we have, roll with it, use some of our fund balance, because again, we just picked 25%, but legally we're allowed to dip in more of those savings to pay for some of these things, and then regroup next year with our plans.
Even if it puts it so that next year's higher and worse than this year.
Yeah, but it also could not be.
Okay, so we've got 0% tax increase, take money from savings, and if it's more increase the following year, that's your stance, personally. Yeah, okay, perfect. Councilmember Doherty, your turn.
I don't see video.
Oh,
sorry. No, that's okay if you guys want to have a turn so that I can think for a second if that's okay.
Or do we have Councilmember Gray on the line with us? Just in case he's got like a low battery or gets some.
Nope, I'm still here.
Is he able to go ahead and speak if he'd like to? Just in case there is some technical difficulties, we can hear from him before that happens.
Ryan, you can try the elementary school approach.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I think it's coming from your.
All right, try it again.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I appreciate everyone that's come today. Looks like we had over 14 people come and talk, so that's great to get some good public input. I appreciate everything that's been said. I just want to say that we need to make sure that we provide for services for our residents, and by having this 7%, 7.06%, we're going to be able to provide those services that we need instead of keep kicking the can down the road. I mean, there could be unforeseen things happen next year, and then we'll be at another 30% increase or things like that. And I feel like this is justifiable to the public to make sure that, this is for essential services, this is for roads, this is for other projects. We may not have a complete plan in place, but at least it shows that we're working towards this and being able to provide good outcomes for our citizens, and having this smaller increase of 7.06%, will be able to provide those services and continue running our city efficiently and financially well. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Gray. Hopefully you've got a charger and you'll still be around here for a vote in a few little, well, I'd say a few minutes, but we'd probably be less than that.
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right, Councilmember Doherty, are you ready?
Oh, sorry, but Councilmember Still.
Oh, I thought you needed more time, so I was just curious if you were ready first.
Okay. So everybody that stood up and said something that I can empathize with, on both sides. When I joined the council, I did so primarily with city finances in mind. This is what I do for my career for over 20 years. I work with organizational budgets. Like some of you guys mentioned, I assumed that when I got here, there's going to be all kinds of waste that I would find. There was not. I found the opposite, right? We're understaffed, we're under budgeted, we have a serious problem in the city. It's a revenue problem. For years and years and years, we were the lowest taxing entity in the state of Utah. You can't do that forever without running into problems. We're not that anymore. The last published report by the Utah Taxpayer Association, we were about $2 higher than the very lowest city in the state per year. So that puts us from third from the bottom. You guys asked questions that we weren't able to answer. I'm going to ask you a question that you don't need to answer it in your own head. If you had your household budget and the only way you could make your ends meet was to borrow money from your savings account every single month, would you consider your budget to be balanced? The state of Utah allows Clinton City to do that. We have a balanced budget because we're allowed to pull from our savings every single month to make ends meet. And we're doing that being behind on road maintenance. We're doing that being behind on the pay rates for some of our employees. We're doing that being out of compliance on certain things. We definitely have a revenue problem. And I don't want to pay any more taxes any more than anybody else does. But we can't be the lowest taxing city in the state and expect to be able to balance our budget forever. It's happened for too many years, too many councils before us refused to address the problem, and now we're paying the price. The big one was last year, and we're still not there. Adam, you asked if we were going to have to do this again. I bet again next year we're going to be in the same situation, but hopefully next year we're not borrowing as much money from our savings. Hopefully it's a much smaller amount that we have to address, but we have to do this 7% increase.
Councilmember Searle, Councilmember Doherty.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so lots of little things to address that I've written down from your comments. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I really, really appreciate the engagement with the public. So if you don't mind, maybe before I address the budget itself, I just want to address a couple points that I wrote down from people's questions. Somebody was talking about their taxes going, their overall tax bill not being much raised. And so it just depends on whether or not your property value went up or down. Obviously, like our city manager said, the overall revenue that Clinton City brings in doesn't change unless we increase our taxes by a vote of the council. But your own individual taxes might change within that whole, and your property values will implicate the amount of change that you see. So like some of us, if our taxes, I apologize, if our values went up, then our tax bills might go up more than other people's. Anyway, so just little things like that, which make it not the same for every person, is what I mean. Some might experience more of a hit than others. And so, yeah, I loved all the comments about having compassion for people who are in different situations and different personal financial situations too. And I think that matters. And so I'm grateful for those thoughts to be forefront in our minds. There are no automatic increases in the property tax for inflation. That's absolutely true. And so, but sales tax and other revenue sources fluctuate. And so they can compensate for inflation sometimes. If we get a good sales tax revenue, then we might just use that to compensate for our inflation. That's totally appropriate. But it does depend. And so then that brings us to this year, which is our finance director's forecasting a dip in our sales tax revenue, and that is not fun at all. That is really rough to see. We never specify which businesses are bringing in a certain amount of sales tax revenue, and so we wouldn't like target a specific business that we're saying has having reduced sales tax revenue, but just the city as a whole is receiving or forecasting less sales tax revenue. And we do want our finance director to be conservative in his estimates so that he's not stressed out of his mind, and so we appreciate that. And we have to deal with the outcome of that lower estimate. And just a little clarification on what my fellow council member just said about the Taxpayers Association's report. It's that Clinton has had the lowest overall taxes and fees per capita. So if that was flagging in your mind, just that we have like the lowest tax, that might not make sense, but just lowest overall taxes and fees per capita. So there might be other cities that have lower property tax than Clinton, but when you look at the number of residents we have and just the amount of actual revenue that we're bringing in from taxes overall or fees, then we're pretty fiscally restrained and have been for a lot of years. And so that's been a great thing for taxpayers' pocketbooks over the years. So then that brings us to the question about our budget right now, which is, it's the eternal question is sometimes we are wanting to prioritize our institution and making sure that the budget needs of our staff and department heads are being met, and other times we're trying to focus a little more on the taxpayers' wallets, and it's a really, really tough balance. It's a very difficult position to be in, and I so appreciate those of you who were expressing your compassion for us in this position. And so there's always that argument there. And so last year, I voted yes on a decent sized tax increase. We made really significant adjustments and generated an extra $1 million in our property tax revenue beyond what we had the previous year. That was a huge sea change for Clinton, not something that we had done in many, many years, and brought us some opportunities for extra personnel and for some more ongoing road improvements, for slurry seals on our road maintenance and other things. A new police officer allowed us to pay for cost of living increases and merits for our employees. And so that was huge. And so I had said at that point, I'm not voting on another tax increase the following year because I knew the school district was going to be doing a tax increase and we wanted to have some reprieve. So for the past year, I've pretty much been saying I'm not voting yes on another tax increase. And I think our staff could hear those concerns coming from us, and they tried really hard to keep it as low as possible. But when you end up seeing that sales tax dip, it made it near impossible to balance the budget without making either severe cuts or without pulling more from fund balance, right? And so I had indicated to my fellow council members just in the recent meetings where we were dealing with our tentative and then final budgets. That I would be willing to compensate for that $200,000 shortfall in sales tax revenue with a property tax increase. And so that's actually a 5% tax increase, the 200,000 amounts to 5%. Just a little clarification on why our numbers have been so funky. And you said this at the top of the meeting, Trevor, but maybe just to remind people since it's a little complex. We were talking in terms of 10% and going down to 7.5%. But our numbers weren't totally accurate at the time because we hadn't gotten the official new growth numbers from the county yet. So what it turns out to be is that the 10%, because our revenue is going from $4 million last year to $4.4 million this year, that is a 10% increase. But not all of it has to be covered now by the taxpayer. So it's 110,000 of it is being covered by new growth now that we got those numbers. And then the remaining it would be the tax increase. So it's still a 10% revenue increase, but yeah, 7% of it is the tax increase now. So that's where our numbers got all off. So what I would prefer to talk about in terms to get that percentage confusion out is it's just talking about it in terms of the overall revenue. So a $4.4 million revenue, or I had indicated in our last meeting, I would be willing to vote yes on a $4.3 million revenue, so that we're kind of threading that needle in compensating for the shortfall forecasted for sales tax revenue, but maybe giving a little wiggle room for the fact that hopefully we're being conservative and we can be respectful of taxpayers' pocketbooks in the aftermath of that large tax increase last year, and in light of the fact that we had to just do a pretty significant monthly utility fee increase this year too. And so I would really like to push for that still. Our taxpayers here in Clinton, between property taxes and their monthly utility fees, the average homeowner would pay over $4,200 a year in taxes and fees. And so when you do, like one member of the public said, when you do add up little things here and there, little bits, it does make a difference for families, and I do know there are families struggling. So I would be willing to vote yes on a 5% tax increase now, which is a $4.3 million revenue generation. It allows the new growth to still compensate for 100,000 of it. It allows the property tax to compensate for 200,000 of it, where the residents would participate in that with a property tax increase. And if my colleagues were willing to do that, I would jump on board with that one.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordy. Councilmember Tyler.
I appreciate the comments that have been made as well. I want to make sure everyone understands that I am very sensitive to taxes, to how that applies to your own budget, to the hardships that there are. And it's not going to be easy for some. Some may not want to look at it as, an energy drink once a month. And I understand that as well. However, let me point out that I was elected to be a representative for the entire city. And I, as that representative, have been tasked with studying the budget in depth, talking to our department heads, listening to our city manager, our professional, are those that deal with it every single day, that are a lot smarter than me. And they are all telling us the same thing. We are in trouble. In a roundabout way, that is what they are all saying. We have cut and cut and cut, and we have nowhere else to cut. To the point that we are now having to take from our general fund to pay for our operation. Now, as representing the city, is that the type of government and city that I want to live in? One that we question every little expenditure
that our department heads put forward. Do I want to question whether or not we really need it? Or do I want to trust that we have hired some amazing people that work in this city? They have the citizens' best interest in mind. I speak for you, and if it doesn't represent you, then I'm sorry. But in the ones that I've talked to all of them, and my impression in talking to them, my opinion, is that each of them have a passion for Clinton. They understand what they are doing and spending the money that they are being given. They are stretching it. Now I've worked for some big companies. I've managed some individuals. And I've also asked, what type of boss, what kind of manager do I want to be? Do I want to be one that micromanages my staff? Do I want to be one that questions everything they do and come to me with options and concerns? Hey, this is getting old and we need to replace it. We've put them in that position to warn us as a council, and they have done that. And for us to put our heads in the sand and say, I don't need it. Or, let's just kick the can down the road again and again and again and again. Sorry, I think that's irresponsible. And that is not the way I operate. I represent the entire city. Now, the whole city's not here tonight. Why not? Why aren't there's more people in support to come up and talk? Why aren't they here? It was definitely a one-sided conversation tonight, from those that were against it to the very few that were okay and were for it. Why is that? Because those that live in the city, they're working hard, they're making ends meet, trying to take care of their families, trying to do their church duties, trying to be a good father, good mother, good son, good daughter. And they can't be here, but they trust that we're going to do the right thing for them. Are we? We're not. By sticking our head in the sand and saying that we're going to go ahead and not give the police those things that they have told us they need. We're not going to give our fire department the things they need. We're not going to give our public works the money they need to repair the roads to the sufficient needs that they have requested. We're not going to give that money to them because we can't afford it. The citizens can't afford it. Well, we have decided to live in Clinton, which is a bedroom community, meaning that most of us, not all of us, most of us live here, but we do not work here. We work outside of the city. So therefore, the tax base, unlike Riverdale, who has a huge sales tax with all their car dealerships and all their everything they have there, their property taxes are pretty low. But you've got to live within a residential area and you have a lot of old homes. That's not what Clinton is. Clinton has a very small tax base, and we live in a place where we don't have a large commercial districts. We have our two main roads. This is a bedroom community. Therefore, taxes only make sense, are going to cost more to live here in Clinton because we still have the police department, the roads, the sewer, the water, the police, all the things that make a city run. But now the burden is on the residents versus the commercial end, unlike, say, Riverdale, for example, or Layton. Okay? However, they're going through the same thing we are. My mind is blown and I'm trying to keep it, and I should have kept it real simple. I've gone over my time that I set for myself, but I'm passionate about it. And I represent all of the citizens in Clinton that are not here, that want to have nice roads to drive on. They want to have their sewer work. They want to have water. They want to have, when they call 911, they want to have a police department or a fire department show up. They want the medics and the paramedics to show up when you're having a heart attack laying on your floor, and if they show up in a minute and a half, that's awesome. It's amazing. We just added another ambulance to our fire department because they weren't able to answer all the calls. They had to wait on North Davis to come in and answer. If they were out on another call, we had to wait on North Davis. Well, that takes a lot more time to get here to Clinton. So are citizens willing to pay for a second ambulance? I thought they were. I thought if you're laying there on your floor with a heart attack, that 2-3 minutes for Clinton to get there to save your life is worth the extra $38 a year. So that you don't die. I don't die. "13 years ago, when my house was on fire, they showed up in a minute and a half at 1:30 in the morning. Even though I lost most of my house, no fault to theirs, we were able to get out alive. My animals were able to get out alive because of the quick response of Clinton City. And now we're telling those people that, and future residents, you're not going to have that great opportunity. One, we don't have a ladder truck that it needs to be replaced. I hope it works when you need it. It worked when I needed it 13 years ago, and they used it 13 years ago. But it needs to be replaced by all standards of fire protection. But we don't have a dime to replace it. So am I passionate about this? Dang right I am. Do I care about my city employees? Do I see the hard work they're doing? Do I see that they should deserve a COLA and a merit? Dang right. They do. You don't know them like I do. You have elected me to know them, to make these hard decisions, to study it out and make the right decision that is right for Clinton, not one individual. I know these department heads. I know these two gentlemen very well. They all have Clinton City's heart, and they are doing everything they can with what little we have given them. I pray that you don't need a fire department showing up at your house. I pray that we don't have a mass shooting where there's a gunman at your house. There's a need for a fire policeman to put his life on the line to save your butt. I hope not. Do I care about the citizens here in Clinton? Yes, I do. And I think every single one of them deserve the protection and the city that we have to protect. That is the city's main responsibility. I'm sorry that you feel you pay too much taxes. I am very sensitive to that. Trust me. I don't need to get personal about it, but I know from family members and other people that I know, I understand. Maybe not personally. I'm okay in paying for the monster once a month. I could probably do 2 or 3. If you have that big of a problem, come see me. I'll give you $40 so that you don't have to pay taxes this year. If you are in that big of a dire strait, come see me. I will pay your taxes, that extra $40 this year. Because I think it's that important. And if you can prove to me that you can't do that and that it's not important for the city of Clinton, then I'm sorry. I don't deserve to be here in this council seat. And if that's the case, so be it. Elections have consequences and it's up to you. That's my soapbox. I do appreciate and love every one of you. I truly do. And that's why I'm so passionate. And that's why I have said what I said tonight.
So, Councilmember Tyler, are you proposing then that you would go along with the 7 or something different?
I am proposing that we stay at 7. We need to be a lot higher. But because of everything that we've done, we are making this progress. I'm willing to stay at 7. I will not go any lower.
Thank you. Any other cards that anybody wants to pass up, and I'll try to address some of those other questions and concerns. And then I'll say a few marks and we'll look for a vote.
Mayor, I realized there was one thing that I forgot to clarify.
Go ahead.
I apologize. I forgot I wanted to explain a little bit about the fund balance, just in case people don't know what we're talking about, sometimes people use the word savings or fund balance. Councilmember Arby hinted that the state law requires that cities maintain at least a 5% fund balance. And then this is in the general fund. So this is not all of our water, sewer, all of those extra funds that our monthly utilities pay for. Those are separate. And then the general fund runs our operations and our departments here in the city. And so that's what our property taxes and sales tax revenues go into, is that general fund. And so the state requires us to keep 5% at a minimum. We don't want to only keep 5%. That would be really rough to only have 5%. That would be very stressful to me personally. And when cities have to dip down that low, they're in a rough position. And then it requires also the state that a city does not go beyond 35% in maintaining their fund balance. And that's as a protection so that cities are not hoarding taxpayer dollars. So anytime that the city has more than 35%, we are required to move that excess into capital improvements or some other place. So I wanted to note that the state only recently just barely changed the rules on that. It used to be for many, many years that they wouldn't allow us to keep more than 25% in our fund balance. And they thought that anything more than 25% would be hoarding. And the only reason they changed it to 35 just in the past couple of years is in the aftermath of the pandemic. Cities like Moab and Park City that are heavily dependent on tourism, they were struggling with having lower fund balances. So they just wanted to give cities more wiggle room. So that's why we talk about, should we keep a 25% fund balance? Should we keep a 35%? And where do we want to land? And what do we want to actually call our savings, right? Because that would be different for each city. What percentage should be our savings, and what percentage should go beyond that we can consider excess and we can move it into capital improvements or whatever. And so this year we've kind of established that maybe 25%, like it always used to be for many years, would be our little mark. And so we've moved that $500,000 beyond the 25% into our capital improvements this year. And that's where that's coming from when you hear us talking about that. And that's great. And that's a great addition to our capital improvements. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody was confused as to what words we're using.
to one point of clarification, I know Councilmember Harvey wanted to drop that savings account, general fund balance, however you want to refer to it, to 20%. Are you suggesting you want to drop it also, or you'd like it to stay at the 25%?
Well, so if you do, so Trevor, remind me, so you indicated in your email to us that there would be a $50,000 surplus with this $4.4 million revenue generation.
Yes.
And so to my mind, if we drop it to a $4.3 million revenue generation, that's a technical $50,000 deficit. That's such a small amount compared to our full fund balance for me that I'm willing to fudge that 50,000 and take it out of the fund balance, because it's very, very possible that when we see the audit next year, that we will not have had to do that, right? And so, yeah, so I would say that it's fine for me to finagle a $50,000 use of the fund balance for this purpose, but that would be all it would be for my proposal.
And then again, don't put anything aside for any capital improvements.
Oh yeah, no, I want the 500,000 to stay. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to keep the budget as is.
Keep the budget as is, reduce the property tax by $100,000, putting it at 4.3 million, which gives us a technical $50,000 deficit in the way that they've drawn it up. But that is wiggle room for our fund balance, and so it can be easily compensated without cutting anything else. So the way that our budget is drawn up right now doesn't take away anything from police, fire, any of these things, and in fact allows a $500,000 movement to capital improvements, and I favor that.
Okay, so I'm having a little difficulty following the numbers. So if we reduce the overall tax rate to 5% instead of the 7%, then where you're just saying take some money out of the savings.
It's just a $50,000
deal.
Correct. Yeah, just a little 50,000, but it would still, it might dip us below the 25%, but we'd still be in like a 24 something, like it's not anything that doesn't leave us with a totally healthy fund balance.
Can I make that clarification of what I said?
Right.
I am willing to help anybody that needs help paying their taxes. I'm willing to give up what I bring in as my stipend for this month, up to that amount. The deal is you have to come and meet with me and we have to talk. One-on-one, face-to-face. I will even come to you. And we will work through your concerns, and I will also help you, if you have not already, get onto the county website and apply for assistance for tax relief on your property taxes. If you have not already done that, I will help you do that. And that in itself, if you qualify, will save you more than $40 per.
Thank you. Trevor, while you and it's long night already. Aaron, working on what a 5% would look like, just from a number standpoint. I'm gonna go through some of these questions, but before you guys jump into that, one was in regards to treasurer, why a 12.8% increase, salary city manager 27.8%, community development 12%, fire with OT 150 grand with 3 new firefighters, the rec program cut the youth sports by 80,000, storm drain, why 21.5% salary. So I know some of those has been trying to clean the budget up because there were so many different department kind of separations, but can you maybe, we can just kind of go one by one through those?
Sure. Yeah, I can address all of those. So the city treasurer went up 12% because last year we added Aaron into the team. Previously we had a finance specialist, but we paid $120 an hour, took down to 10 to 15 hours of work a week. With that funding for that position, we rolled that into the finance director. There was an additional budget that needed to go to the finance director. We accounted for that last year, except for when we negotiated salaries, that salary was a little bit higher to snag Aaron. And we informed the council of that before. We didn't need to do a budget amendment this year because we had some fund savings in there with some attrition.
City manager.
City manager, Like I said before, that one went up 27% because last year I didn't do a formula correct. So this is an error that I had. We didn't include the IT component in there. We did a budget amendment.
So you're not getting paid 27.
I'm not getting paid 27. We ended up through 2.5 and 2%. As well. So that's just personnel that wasn't added into the budget last year that should have been, and that was an error done by myself. Community development, we added the code enforcement full-time position into that, so that accounted for that difference there.
We've got our fire chief here, so we're gonna add 3 new firefighters. Why do we still have OT?
I can handle that real quick. So overtime is a necessary evil with our fire department. So FLSA law allows us to pay our firefighters at a different pay rate pay period than the rest of the staff. However, each pay period will automatically get 5 hours of overtime. I've done all the math. That's the best we can get at 5 hours of overtime. So every employee will always get 5 hours of overtime on their paychecks. And so that's where that overtime was coming from. So last year, when I came in, that was something that was like, we always are off on our personnel accounts and our overtime. And overtime's always way higher, and then we're accounting for it. And as we dug into it, we realized that it's because of that forced overtime. It's going to the overtime line budget, but wasn't being accounted for in the budget. And so that's why there's 150,000 is going to be about 120,000 that is going to be overtime paid because of that. But the additional is just any, there's overtime that just happened.
And to help clarify that one, the nice thing about the new three firefighters is response times will be cut. We will be able to use that extra ambulance to its fullest capability. That'll help generate some revenue. And the overtime budget was actually almost double that, if not more. So that's coming way down to help offset the cost of that extra employee. Rec department, youth sports, 80,000.
Yeah, rec department on that just kind of fluctuates based on what they anticipate their programming needs are. If you notice in the budget, all rec programming, we try really hard to get at least everything but the administration covered by those recreational fees that come in. And so you'll see that the recreation fees that are paid for adult youth sports go to offset the actual expenditures. And we're paying the taxpayer in this sense would be paying for the administration for those funds. So the reduction is just a reduction in what we anticipate running this next year.
Thank you. One other question was in regards to flower baskets and banners. There was a vote to add some money there for the banners. Good news is all of those funds were done through an RDA years ago. So none of these taxes, none of this budget has anything to do with the city beautification. However, a lot of people here on the council really love that there's those flower baskets has become the identity in Clinton. We intend to put those back up as soon as possible. Walkability was mentioned earlier in the city. Good news is we have a bunch of money sitting aside for the next few years. When they widen the road some more, not this phase, but the next phase, there will be a bridge going over 2,000. So you can literally go from one trail over 2,000, stop, grab something at Fat Cats or 7-Eleven and continue on down the way. So that's things that we do want to keep in mind is walkability.
That's grant money, by the way. We got like $11 million in grant money.
It's not good to know that UDOT owns 1,800 and 2,000. Those are not city roads. So we have very little.
No say. Trails on one side.
But we have very little say. This is their project. They said. I think we are doing.
I think a lot of some of these might have been answered, talked about again, where if any areas can we trim to meet the needs despite increased costs. As you guys have heard, this first initial budget came out, there was $800,000 that's been cut out. Councilmember Doherty's done a good job of trying to find other things that have been cut. We're all open to continue to look at cuts, and I think we feel comfortable that we try to cut as much as we can, and that's where we're not just kind of stuck on 0, 5, 7, 10, or whatever it could be. But it's very true. We're gonna have continued inflation. Tariffs are gonna affect everything that's gonna happen. And sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but there will continue to be increases in your property taxes, not only from Clinton City, but from these other agencies to offset inflation.
Some inside baseball, just to inform the public on this, because I think it's a good thing to know. One thing that department heads and I are working really hard on are looking at the efficiencies within your organization too, because we don't want to just add employees because there's a gap or a need in some particular spot. We want to make sure that we're utilizing technology, for example, line painting for fields. Right, we in initial conversations, there's hey, let's get this writing line painter, which is great. It would cut down the time. But I said if we decide to invest $12,000 more, which is a lot, we can get an automated GPS line painter, right? So that you can go and set it, let it go do its thing, and go weed eater for a little bit or something like that. So increasing some efficiencies that way, utilizing technology. I mean, automated mowers is another thing to look at on how we can do that. Utilizing our systems and software a little bit better, and then maximizing the placement of our employees and how we utilize those. So we're looking at kind of all comprehensive. That's our day-to-day of we meet weekly to discuss how we can improve those efficiencies, what ways, anytime there's an employee that leaves, Aaron and I will talk and say, do we have to replace that employee? Can we put that employee? We constantly look at a lot of those efficiencies that we do.
I'll just give kudos to these gentlemen. I mean, we made some amazing strides just in these last few years. It's been great to see us go out and get experts that we've never had before in Clinton City, and continue to increase our police and fire. Look at stuff. One of the ones, and it's pretty cool. Before we had literally office staff and front desks in every department pretty much. And so now there's been some consolidation to try to help save money there, and how can we best utilize those resources. We've had people that have had 3 different jobs that got paid for 3 different accounts in the city, and how can we bring people together, find synergies, give people that might be sitting at a front desk more duties to then take care and fill in some of that time while they're waiting for customers, phone calls, things like that. So Aaron, I think, and Trevor have done really, really good to try to stretch those dollars as far as possible, really make sure that, the employees are being best utilized. And the best thing about it is the accountability. There's been some personnel changes just recently in the last year or so, and it shows that we're holding people to a higher standard than ever before. We want to see maximum output, and we want to protect those dollars that are coming in as much as possible. The next one is just a comment to remember to make it worth your public safety employees. Many are low paid compared to other cities, and try not to cut things like insurance or other merit-based performance, just because, again, overall benefits do make a big difference. And that was one thing we were very trying to be careful about, of how can we bridge that gap. Yes, it's hard to tell an employee, we're sorry, we know you've had this for years and years, but we're trying to find cuts, and that's one of the ways. And so, yeah, hopefully as we continue to keep doing wage studies, as we look at other places, that everybody will be willing to keep making these hard decisions of saying, yes, part of these tax increases literally goes to pay the employees. And are we able to postpone some projects on focus on higher priority things? I think you heard Councilmember Searle say, and Councilmember Tyler try to say, like, Clinton has deferred and deferred and deferred. And as leaders, we're trying to say, hey, our city engineer's not here tonight, but just to give you guys a figure, he thinks we should be putting over $1 million a year into streets. Additionally. And we're this year putting in 350.
So the total budget that will go to streets is over $1 million.
Right.
But we should be at 2 million.
But we carved out more than we've carved out in years past. Yep. So is there a willingness to postpone any new spending until financial audits are completed? depending on what happens with taxes, if there's less than what's proposed at the 7%, then yes, things will continue to get postponed. But as you looked at those lists that came up on those screens, there is so much postponement going on. That's really the biggest fear, because now roads keep getting worse and worse, buildings keep getting worse and worse, and that's what we're trying to say. Let's be very proactive and try to get some money going aside for those things. Relief for seniors, Councilmember Tyler mentioned this, there is relief for seniors based on certain incomes. There are resources for options there. People can do reverse mortgages, there is abatements, so there is some information out there. Please, if anybody has questions on that, let us know so we can get that into your hands.
You took my thunder away.
County website has all
And, again, we're trying our best to make cuts, and then also, really limit the increases. Police and fire and good people, they want to make sure they get their cost of living. As far as the other employees, there wasn't a special public hearing about it because they're standard employees, but every one of our employees also has that cost of living all the way down to our janitors are actually contracted, so I can't say down to the janitor, but our staff does take care of some janitorial duties and to the lawnmowers and so forth. So yes, they do also receive that cost of living. And as long as they're doing and meeting those performance goals, they would also be entitled to a merit. So it's not just the top, it's across the board, all the same. Just a comment, we need to be aware that some of our senior police officers are leaving, as far as a mix between morale and pay. We just need to make sure, again, as the budgets keep continuing on, that we're really looking at where's our pay at and what are we doing to try to help that. I just mentioned we do have services that vendors are more appropriate, our pest control, even our snow plows, part of the city gets done by a vendor just because we don't have enough snow plow drivers and trucks. That would cost more. If you wanted to pay more taxes, then we can farm that out. But yes, we look at vendors. We want to try to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck throughout the city. Can the city go out and encourage needed businesses to come in rather than wait for them to come? Absolutely, that's part of economic development. That's, I think, one of the areas I've tried to really focus on is, A, don't forget about Clinton. We're this perfect triangle between Riverdale and Layton. This is where the future is going to be as far as any growth goes. And so therefore, please keep us in mind. Let's make it work. Let's figure out what the solution is for you. I keep recruiting every sit-down restaurant I can. I still hope we can get one, and that'll make a lot of people happy in town. Some not so happy, but I know I'll be happy because I love to travel outside. COLA increases 2.5%. Federal COLA is between 2 and 2.5. The federal COLA increase, we actually are kind of delayed. We usually wait until that number comes out, and then after that is what we've gone off of. So last year was a higher COLA. But again, we're trying to be mindful of those increases, and the recommendation is on this one that maybe it could be reduced to 2%. Salaries would still be competitive, and public sector employees don't receive cost of living increases. So as we're getting, a budget together, that is something that a cut can be done if somebody wants to see that proposed. And then, let's see, I think we've got a couple others here. One was, as far as the 5%, just clarification on what that would mean. Did you guys get a number?
Yes, I'll let you say numbers more eloquently than I did.
We're talking about 5% fund balance.
I believe it's a 5% tax increase instead of saying.
By 3 million revenue generation.
Your numbers correct.
Oh, this one, so yeah, so it went down 5%, so we want that actual number.
Yeah. Just to let it know that we can, so Aaron.
So basically, so we go from the 7.06%, that takes us to 4.4. If we did a 5%, it would take us down to 4.314.
something like that. It's gonna be about an $85,000 cut to revenue.
So that's the question, is if we wanted to stick to that 4.3, report 4.3 revenue to county, or do the true 5% at the 4.5. That's it. And that's semantic.
And so that difference in money would be as part, we budgeted that we'd have a slight overage for something unforeseen, and the other amount that's not covered would come out of the savings or the general fund.
Yeah, about 60, it'd be about 65,000 on your page.
Perfect. And then there was another question in regards to the ladder truck not being addressed. I think it's been addressed. It's just another example of kicking the can down the road. I pushed hard from even before I sat here. I came as a citizen and said, hey, you guys should look at doing a tax increase. When we were here for the paramedics, because we had to take them over, we were forced to start paying for the paramedics instead of Davis County. Said, guys, probably do a little more, so we're prepared for any of these other unforeseen things. I mentioned it in my article about budget amendments. You've heard our city manager reference budget amendments. Budget amendments happen annually. There's no way to just think it's not going to change and it's going to be perfect. And so for me, it's very important, to Councilmember Doherty's part, we have an extra 50 grand. Well, guess what? More lawsuits, there goes our 50 grand. We have the slip and fall, we have whatever these other things is, we can go, so many ways of how that 50 grand can get sucked up instantly in a budget amendment because something changes, the dollar amount's different. And so for me, I sleep much better knowing there's a 25% savings account sitting there. We've got a 50 grand over here for some budget amendments. And by the way, we've got $500,000 for a long list of items that's nowhere near funded. And we're not going to get grants to cover everything on there. And so that's, I think the biggest difference is do we want to plan and try to save some for the unknown and the future? Because trying to say that it's not planned for is not true. There's so many different items that we can plug money to because it's an overall budget. Hiring new firemen, it comes in this budget. Police officers, it comes in this budget. So if you want to look at what does that 7% do, what does the 5% do? Part of that covers those employees. So you can't really say, well, it's only going to this because it's all part of that equation. I just want to thank our staff and our council members. I heard in a talk recently, the L in leadership stands for lonely. Leadership is lonely. It's not fun. You have to make hard decisions, often unpopular decisions. But leadership takes courage, and I'm grateful to see that, it looks like people are saying, hey, we want to be courageous. We know we've got some issues, but we're going to try to solve them. Inflation doesn't go down below zero very often. I don't even know if it's gone below zero in my life, but it's very rare inflation goes below zero. And so year in and year out, we have to plan for inflation. If not, we're going backwards each and every year. And so when we had the big 32% tax increase that I think everybody voted for except you, it was hard as a mayor to say, guys, we are going to be back in this exact same seat next year. And I said it because I know that if we want to take care of our employees, it's $500,000 increase next year. That means there needs to be at least a 5% tax increase next year just to take care of our employees. Nothing else different. So that's the hard reality and the truth is that inflation happens year in and year out. But council, thank you guys. I commend you on getting the single digits. Our staff here started and recommended after all of the research they did, we need 10%. That's where they felt comfortable about. We've reduced it from there. There's talks of maybe reducing it further, but I commend you to getting to single digits. I think it's so much easier for residents to plan on regular and single digit increases than huge infrequent ones that you never know are when are coming. And I think it's more fair because everybody gets to pay their fair share along the way. Other than that, thank you residents for coming out. This is the most we've ever had of the truth in taxation hearing. I think it goes to show the city's trying to be more transparent than it's ever been before. We're trying to be more open than we've ever been before. And we're really just trying to say, hey, please come, listen. We want to hear your feedback. I'm in the favor of part of our capital improvement that we make a budget amendment tonight to fund a crossing guard. If we need two, fund two. If we need three, fund three. Like, that's small enough numbers. That's the whole purpose for me behind having some of this future planning is we can very easily go in and say, not a problem at all. Let's take care of that today, because guess what? We made a difference earlier in the year and we planned for it. We make that budget amendment, we move forward, and we're not now having to really double somebody's taxes the next year because we didn't do anything this year and said, no, we can get by this through. So thank you all. Is there somebody that would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the fiscal year 2022 final budget with the proposed 7.06 increase.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm sorry, this one was just the public hearing, and then we'll go to the third one and
okay.
So
it addressed through the ordinance.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead now and move to agenda item C, which is that the council adopt resolution 0825 approving the final budget for the fiscal year 2026 and adopting the certified tax rate of 0.002159. And I again would like that if somebody does that motion, that they include the change that the city council and mayor is only getting the 2.5% cost of living increase, and that we're gonna fund a crossing guard.
And how are we gonna fund that?
And reduce the $500,000 that we were planning on saving for capital improvement and take it from there. Or
if we just increase that budget line, I think you can make the motion of adding another crossing guard. What we can do is we can still operate within the funds that are already budgeted for that. And if we show that there's gonna be an additional cost, we can do a budget amendment later to encompass that. Does that make sense? So I don't think that has to be included in the amendments because it's such a smaller amount that may be eaten up in some other way, if that makes sense. I'm not worried about us going over budget. Line item, I guess I should say. And if we do, it's an easier fix.
So we can still add that per this motion.
You can add it, just add an additional crossing guard, absolutely. But I wouldn't worry about amending the budget. And then if you, with the city council changes that we had discussed in the public hearing for that. There are several items in the budget that are affected by that, so it might be difficult to itemize each one in that motion. And so I think just having us modify the council budget to reflect the proper COLA amount between the two fiscal years and then any subsequent modifications too, because it's like there'll be dollars in the administrative fees for all the utilities that will change because there's a small portion of your salaries that paid from our utility fees and things like that. So it's just a whole lot of little tiny fees in that budget.
Mayor, I make a recommendation that city council adopt resolution 08-25 approving the final budget for fiscal year 2026 and adopting the certified tax rate of 0.002159. And with that, to add one additional crossing guard and to have staff
modify the COLA for city council raises or city council
And mayor, that's good.
yeah, between this year and last year, and then those needed adjustments as required.
Okay. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion?
I do want to say one thing I've been thinking about, just real quick. This is, obviously the budget is super important. You look at all the people here. We have a meeting, and I know it's hard to get to these meetings. Before I was on the council, I probably only came to 5 meetings in the 20 years I've lived in the city before that. But we had a meeting not very long ago. It was in a different room. It was standing room only. And we were, the budget was on the agenda, but it was preceded by the ordinance for chickens. And it was standing room only, and I was so excited that all these people were coming out to talk about the budget. What I found out is that they were all there to talk about their chickens, which is great too. People love their animals, it's wonderful. But as soon as we were done talking about chickens, everybody left. And nobody stuck around to hear us discuss the budget. So I'm just making another quick plea that, we're gonna repeat this process starting, again in the end of the first quarter next year. Yeah, so please be, if I implore you, be more involved in what we're doing so that you can understand where we're coming from, what we're facing, and probably have some good ideas that will help us out.
I also want to make another comment, if that's okay, just what I was thinking about, just listening to all of this, it's just fascinating how many different lenses people can view things through, right? Like that's something that's been really interesting to me as an elected official, because I've sat in this seat with completely other people too who would have approached this completely differently. And sometimes it has to do with a person's just what they're choosing to prioritize as they look at the budget, and so I guess I just wanted to point that out, how fascinating it is that we all have such different ways of looking at things, and that different philosophies are at play when we look at budgets. And anyway, not anything important, but just like a little thought.
Thank you, Murray.
And so we've got a motion, we've got a second, we've had further discussion. We'll go ahead and do a roll call. Councilmember Doherty. Oh, you're first up. Yes, sir.
Oh, so I have to vote no because it pushes a little too far for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Tyler.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Arby.
No.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Searle.
Yes.
Okay. So that motion then carries, and that projected rate will be the 7.06. Thank you all for sticking it through for 3 hours in a row. If anybody has questions, give us a few minutes to use the restroom, grab a drink, and we're happy to continue to keep going. I have a firm belief that nothing good happens after midnight, so 12 o'clock, we're shutting it down, no matter if you still have more questions. Thank you again.